Katie, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing good. The name of the book is Buried Memories, Katie Beer's story, which is available in stores right now. So, when did this? You were 9 or 10 years old. What year was this that this happened in?
It happened December 28th of 1992.
And tell me what happened that day.
That day, a family friend came. I was visiting my godmother for my birthday, a couple of days before my birthday. And a family friend, pardon me, a family friend came over to bring me a birthday present, and he asked my godmother if he could take me to like an indoor amusement park, kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese. It was called, or it is called Spaceplex.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to me going to visit my godmother, my biological mother, Marilyn, informed me that I was not allowed to go see the family friend whose name is John. She was very, very adamant about me not going to visit him, told my godmother that I wasn't allowed to go visit him, and my godmother told me that it was okay for me to go visit him. And so I went with him that afternoon.
And so you went with him, and what did he do? Did he just take you right to his house? Did you ever get to this Spaceplex or whatever it was called? I mean, what did he do? Just take you right to the house?
That afternoon, he took me to a 7-Eleven, and we bought a Slurpee, and he told me then that he wanted to take me to Toys R Us to get a video game. I told him that I really didn't want to go to Toys R Us. I didn't want to go there. I would feel more comfortable just going right to Spaceplex. And he was pretty adamant about taking me to Toys R Us to buy me this video game, even though I didn't have a console player at home. So we went to Toys R Us, picked out a game, and he told me that he wanted to take me back to his house to go play it so I could try it out before we went to Spaceplex.
And so then you get to the house. And cutting ahead, he ended up like putting you in this sort of like dungeon thing, I guess. But when you get to the house, what does he do? Does he say, get in this dungeon, or is there, I mean, are you watching TV for a while and then you're ready to go and he goes, no, you're getting in the dungeon? How does one thing lead to another?
One thing you have to understand about this guy, and of course at nine years old, I didn't realize this, but he was the epitome of a pedophile. His bedroom was in basically a game room. So whenever kids would come over to play video games or play board games or do whatever it might be that we were doing there, it was in the same room that he had slept in. There was a bed in there. And so he had told me to go ahead and start playing the game. He had gone into the game room closet for a couple minutes and then had gone downstairs, didn't tell me what he was doing. So I was just sitting on the bed playing the game as I normally would have done on any other occasion. And he then came back upstairs, and I could just tell by the look in his eyes that he wasn't the same person that had left 3 minutes ago. He, like the guy that I had known all my life, was just drained from him, and he was just a completely different person. He came up behind me and sat on the bed behind me, which again wasn't anything really out of the ordinary, other than his drained facial appearances. And then he pulled me up onto his lap. He proceeded to sexually assault me, which he had never done prior to this day. He put his hand over my mouth so I couldn't yell, told me not to yell, and then he told me that he had something to show me. After that, and I'm not sure exactly how long that lasted, it could have been a minute, it could have been 15 minutes. After that, he took me downstairs into his office, and we were never, ever allowed in his office. That room was off limits. So I knew when he had assaulted me that something was off, but then I knew that something was really off when he had brought me into his office.
And then in this office, is this where there was like a secret compartment or something? Or where did he hold you for this period of time?
In his office, there was a closet. It was a deep closet that how you had to get to the tunnel to the dungeon was it was very meticulously planned. You had to pull out a bookcase that had braces on, like, inside the closet. So if you pulled it out, it wouldn't come out all of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to undo the braces. And I, of course, didn't know all of this at this time. I was cowering under the desk trying to call 911. But he had to take this bookcase out of the closet to open up the space. He rolled up a carpet, rolled up the padding, and then rolled up linoleum flooring. So 3 different things he had to roll up. And that exposed a big concrete slab. And the concrete slab, I don't know exactly what tools he had to use or anything like that, but he had to get some sort of hoist. And he had on the ceiling of the closet, he had to attach the hoist to something and then attach it to the slab on the floor to crank it up. And this all was hidden. The place on the ceiling that you attached the hoist to, you couldn't, unless you were looking for it, you would never know that was there. So he then cranked it up, and
now what's going through your mind at this point as this thing is being cranked up? Are you going, uh-oh?
Could you escape? Obviously you couldn't, but could you run or?
I don't know if I could have run. It all seemed to be happening so fast. Like, I tried, when this whole process started, when he put me in the office and he was in the closet, I actually grabbed the portable phone and tried calling 911. Now, I don't know if I actually got through to anybody or if I was just talking to the dial tone, but I did dial 911, and the next thing I knew, he was standing above me. He took the phone out of my hands and hung it up, and then he took me and threw me into the closet. So at that point, I couldn't have run anywhere.
And what were you thinking when he's lifting this thing up? Are you thinking he's going to put me in there? I mean, did you know what was about ready to happen?
I had absolutely no clue what was happening, and the scary thing is I had known John literally all of my life. I had known him as early as I can remember. He was always in my brother's life, so he was always in my life, so to speak. And he was always just such a nice guy, always buying me and my brother toys, always taking my brother places, and when he was able to, he would take me places. We all really, really liked him. There was no reason to not like him.
And he never creeped on you prior to that?
Or your brother?
Yeah. What about your brother? Did he do anything to your brother? Did that come out ever?
Years later, my brother did admit, well, actually, I'm sorry, it was after I was abducted, my brother did admit that John had assaulted him. I don't know if my brother has ever said exactly what had happened, but he did admit that John had assaulted him.
Katie Beers is on with us. She has her book out. She has her book out, Buried Memories, Katie Beers' story. So at this point, he hoists this thing up. You're like, oh no, this isn't looking good. He then that's an understatement. So then what does he say? Does he say crawl down there? Does he pick you up, or what happens?
After he gets this hoisted up and moves it to the side, he tells me to get down there. I was crying, and I said, no, I don't want to. He again told me to get down there, and again I said no. So then he took me and he dropped me down it. I'm not exactly sure. It could have been 2 feet. It could have been 4 feet. I'm not exactly sure how far down it was, but it was definitely quite a drop for my small stature.
And how big was this dungeon total?
The dungeon was, I believe the measurements are 6 by 7 by 7 or 6 by 6 by 7. It was not very big at all. And then within the big room of the dungeon, there was a smaller coffin-sized box where I spent a majority of the time.
Oh my God, that's
pitch black.
Yeah, is there any lighting or anything in there?
In the the larger box area, there was some sort of overhead lighting. I'm not sure if it was like ceiling track lighting or fluorescent light bulbs. I don't recall that exactly. But in the larger area, there was some lighting. In the smaller coffin box that I was held in, the only lighting that I had was from a television.
And this guy, this John Esposito is his name. He actually admitted they eventually they found out what was going on and they arrested this guy. He admitted that he built this room specifically for you?
That is correct. That's what he says.
And this must have taken some time. I mean, this was not like a snap thing like, hey, I'm just going to do something to this little girl. You were 9, I think, at the time. I mean, it must have taken him months at least
It took a long time. There are actually, through therapy, I remembered years later after the incident that my brother's name is John also, so we called him Little John. My brother and I were actually kind of playing in the dungeon when it was being built. Like, I have memories of my brother and either my cousin or my brother and one of his friends jumping into this and jumping into the hole and out of the hole, like playing in it and wrestling in it. And I was too little to do anything, so I just sat up on the bank of it watching them.
And then years later, you're in this thing.
Yeah.
Now, so you're 9 years old at the time. You actually spent your 10th birthday in this dungeon. Now, you go missing, and obviously when you don't go home that night, people start looking for you, I would assume, right?
Well, John actually had me do a recording saying, I forget the exact words, but something along the lines of, I've been kidnapped, there's a man with a knife, oh my God, here he comes.
Oh, you made a recording of that.
Yeah.
And where did that recording go?
He took it and went to a gas station near Spaceplex, which I never got to, but he took it to a gas station at Spaceplex and called my godmother, Linda, and played it on her answering machine.
Oh, my God. So
wouldn't police know that you were the last person he was with? Like, you two were the last?
Yeah, I mean,
how do you not say, okay, this is fishy, and go to him?
I think they must have, right? I mean, people knew that he was supposed to take you to this Spaceplex, right?
People did know. The police from, I believe, like day one, had camped out at his house. He lived in an apartment that was a converted garage, a converted detached garage from the main house. And so the police camped out in the front house to keep an eye on him. So there were always police there.
But they didn't know that you were in this dungeon, obviously. Otherwise, they would have come in and gotten you. How long were you in this dungeon for?
It was, I say 16 days to not elongate it, but it was actually 17 days.
17 days you were in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
yep. So
did the police at any point, that they knew, I guess they went and they looked at security camera video of this Spaceplex and he goes, yeah, she must have been taken from there, but you know, the security camera showed that you weren't there.
Yeah, nobody recalled, obviously, seeing me there.
And so did they at any point do a search of this guy's house and overlook this dungeon because of how hidden it was?
Unless you knew about it, you would have no clue that it was there. After he built it, he then, of course, put dirt back up on it, and then he built a carport. So he poured concrete over it and built a carport.
And then, so at any point did they search, because they knew this guy was the last guy to see you, mm-hmm. Did they search his house at all during those 17 days and just miss you, or did they not even search in his house?
Yeah.
They searched his house several times.
Oh, my God. And they couldn't find you. That closet was so well hidden in this dungeon, they just overlooked it.
Basically, yeah. There were some telltale things that were a little off that nobody realized were off when they were looking. Like, there was a baby monitor in the living room, which why would a grown man who didn't have any kids in a small apartment, so to speak, have a baby monitor. That was one thing I believe that was overlooked. And then there actually was a security camera in the vent of the apartment that pointed to the driveway that fed to a closed-circuit security camera within the bigger box. So there was a closed-circuit security camera down there.
Now,
and if that would have been found, the cops then would have been like, okay, well, where's the other part of this? Because it's hooked up to something.
right.
But it was so hidden, so well hidden, that nobody realized it until after the fact.
Were you able to hear anything while you were in this dungeon? Obviously, I'm guessing not. Otherwise, if you hear the police searching for the place, you would scream out.
There are times that I thought that I heard the police, whether it was really in my head or not, I'm not exactly certain. But there are times that I was positive that I heard the police up above me searching, and so I would be down there screaming and banging on the ceiling.
And for these 17 days, if he wants to get at you, give you food, do whatever, he has to go through this whole process of taking this bookshelf off the thing and hoisting this thing up and going. I mean, that sounds like that's a pretty involved process. So how much of this time, like in a 24-hour period, how often would he come in there or bring you out, or did he bring you out? What if you had to take a leak? What if you had to go to the bathroom? What would happen?
He would come down once every 24 hours, and in the beginning, it started off that he would spend like a good bit of time, because the cops really they were pressing on him, but not too much because they were running down other leads too.
Mm-hmm.
So he would spend however long, I don't know if it was 20 minutes, a half hour, an hour, but in the beginning it started off that he would spend a decent amount of time, and then as the cops started pressing on him more and more, he didn't have as much quote-unquote free time to be down there with me. Within the larger box area, there was a toilet that had just a plastic garbage bag in it. So there was a toilet down there, but I could only get to that during the once every 24 hours that he would come down to bring me food or bring me new blankets and different things like that. So if I had to use the bathroom, which of course you have to go more than once every 24 hours, I actually had to go underneath the TV in this little coffin box. And
did you think during this period of time that he was going to kill you?
I never thought that he was going to specifically kill me. He did want to take pictures of me looking like I was dead so he can send them to the police, so then the police would stop looking for me. But I don't think it crossed my mind that he was going to kill me, because every day I would ask him a new series of questions, such as, what am I going to do for school? What am I going to do for work? What about kids? What about family, my future, getting married, things like that. So he would always say that he was going to teach me things that I would learn in school. I wouldn't have to work because he had enough money for us. As for kids, he would have kids with me when the time was right. And as for getting married, once I was 18 and the cops had stopped looking for me, I would be his wife.
Oh, wow. This guy's a fucking nutcase, obviously. Yeah. But, wow. Now, did he molest you throughout this period of time? He did the first, before he even put you in this dungeon. Did that continue through the 17 days?
It did. There were times that he would touch me. There were times that he would make me do things to him, and he also raped me a couple times. I don't know if it was 2 times or 7 times. I'm not sure exactly, because you'll have to remember I had no light. My only source of what time of the day it was this TV, and I wasn't sleeping either. So it's just like all one big long span of time for me.
Wow. I mean, this is an incredible story. And then, how did they find you? How did the police find you? Or what happened?
John called his lawyer on the morning of January 13th and told his lawyer that he knew where I was. So he went to his lawyer's office and told them basically that he had me the entire time. And they then called the Suffolk County DA to kind of try to do a plea deal, I think. And
yeah, that's going to go over well. Hey, listen, we'll give her up if you, if you let us off. Just give me a slap on the wrist, right?
From the time, I think there was like a few-hour lag from the time that he told his lawyer to the time that he brought the cops down.
Wow. And so they come down there, and they've already searched his house, but they never found you. So now they open up. What happens when that door opens up and you see that it's the police or whoever? Who do you see first?
Well, I heard voices. I heard John talking to one or two other people, and I was really scared at that point, not knowing if John had friends that were going to torture me and molest me and things like that. I didn't know. And the officers, when they came down, they were, I believe, in just suits. So there's really no way for me to say, okay, well, they're wearing a uniform. Okay, they're the good guys.
Right.
Even though as soon as they opened up the door, they were like, we're the police, you're safe, we're going to get you out of here. I still didn't believe them until I was in the cop car leaving John's property because I didn't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it could just be a couple of guys that, buddies of his, going to take you to the next place for all you know.
Exactly.
Wow. So you couldn't even be excited or anything until you're actually out there, and then they take you where, to your parents' house, to the police station.
No, right afterwards. Not right afterwards, but afterwards they took me to, I believe, like the 4th precinct, if I remember correctly, and I went through what felt like hours upon hours of questioning. After the questioning, they then took me to a children's hospital on Long Island to get checked out and examined.
Wow,
You wouldn't do that first? That's weird.
Yeah.
You know?
Katie Beers is with us. Her book is Buried Memories, Katie Beers' story, which is available in stores right now. This this John Esposito guy, he's still in prison now, right?
Yes, he is. He was up for parole in 2007, 2009, 2011, and he's up for parole again this year.
And probably won't make it, though, I'm guessing, unless something is terribly wrong with the system. Hopefully this guy will spend the rest of his life in prison, one would think.
Has he tried to contact you?
Not to my knowledge. Now, my foster parents have kept me very, very sheltered from the media and every other outlet, and that was a huge part of my recovery, not having to really speak to anybody that I didn't want to about this. So he very well could have. I don't believe that he did. My co-author, Carolyn Gussoff, she sent him a letter asking if he would be willing to do an interview to help me with the book, and the letter is actually in the book. Basically, John is saying no, he won't be interviewed because every time something gets brought up with his case or with me, he gets tortured in jail, and he wants to die a free man, and he thinks that he served enough time.
Now, you are married now, right?
I am, yes.
And you have a couple of kids, I believe.
I have 2 children.
How do you actually have a normal relationship with a man after this happens? And not only this, but reading more about you, you were molested by someone else from the time you were like 2 years old. I think it was it a stepfather or something like that?
It was my godmother's husband.
Okay, so your godmother's husband molested you for years from the time you were like 2 or something. How do you have a normal do you have a normal relationship with a guy? Who knows? Maybe they have a dungeon in their house these days. I don't know.
I do. My husband is absolutely phenomenal and understanding, but a huge part of everything and being able to have that type of relationship is I know not all men are bad. I just drew a horrible card, I guess, in life and had two men do horrible things to me. But I also had my brother, who is almost 6.5 years older than me, as a positive male influence on my life. My foster dad is absolutely phenomenal. I couldn't ask for a better father figure at all. So I don't have those trust issues. Plus, I went through years of therapy and just realized that I drew a bad card, unfortunately.
There's a guy on the phone who wanted to ask this question, and maybe it's a good question. I'll just ask it for him and for the sake of time. But he wants to know why the guy, this John Esposito, why did he go to his lawyer and say that he had you the whole time? Was it just that the heat from the police was getting too intense, or what made him go and give you up?
I've been told that it was a combination of me kind of manipulating him and constantly, like one day I would be very happy with him and very loving. The next I would be very angry and upset with him. The next day I would say that I was sick. So I was trying different tactics myself to get him to release me because I knew that the cops were still looking for me. And the cops had really, toward the end, really just after like the first day or so, the cops really started pressing on him because they knew that he had me. There wasn't a doubt in their mind. They just didn't know where.
What he had done with. They might have thought that he just killed you. Dumped you in the woods or something. And wow, she used a technique. She actually just drove him crazy. It's almost like what if you're married to a woman, you know the feeling. Well, Katie, listen, the book, pick this up because I'm sure we went into a lot of detail here, but I'm sure there's much more detail in the book. It's called Buried Memories, Katie Beers' story. It's available in stores right now. Katie, I appreciate you coming out. Do you, now that you have these kids, I mean, do you just have them on a leash at all times? So that,
that's a good question.
I mean, I don't know how I'd ever let my kid out of my sight.
Do you have a message like to tell kids to if someone touches you to tell an adult, or do you tell your kids any of this?
Well, my son, my eldest child, my son is 3.5, so he's still really young, and my daughter is just 17.5 months old. So they're both really young. I, of course, haven't gone into anything with them. My children are of the age where they really shouldn't be out of my sight regardless. I don't think that I'm keeping them too close pertaining to their age.
Could you imagine like being her kid? Because anything, like if you didn't get a new pair of shoes when you're like 8 years old, you're like, Mom, I can't believe you're not getting me that pair of shoes. She goes, I spent 17 days in a dungeon, you little brat.
No.
Don't talk to me about new shoes. When I was pooping in a plastic bag, I didn't have any shoes. Oh my God, these poor kids. They'll never. Wow.
Oh no, they'll be good. They'll be good. No, but I guess my message, and it's hard because parents always tell their kids, and my biological mom would tell me periodically, if anybody does anything, you tell us, or things like that. Maybe not in those words, but it's hard when somebody's threatening you and you know that they can hurt you. It's hard to say, okay, Mom, this guy that has physically beaten you before, he's doing these things to me, but he told me he's going to kill you if I tell you. So, of course, me being however old, I was trying to protect my family members, too, from this very abusive guy.
Right.
That told me he was going to cause more physical harm to these people that I loved if I said anything. So when I finally did break my silence and I told my godmother, in more or less words, she told me that I was a liar, and she didn't believe me.
Wow.
Ugh.
You know, I remember the conversation. I'm 37 years old, and I still remember vividly a conversation that my mother had with me. I must have been 4 or 5 years old, and my mom sat me down, and she gave me the speech about if anyone touches you, if anyone, and she wrapped it up. She said, you come to me, and she goes, even if they say that they're going to kill me or kill you or do something, you come tell me, and I'll take care of it. And they're just trying to tell you that so that you don't come and tell me. And I mean, I remember that some over 30 years later. I mean, my God. Well, Katie, it's a fascinating story, and thank God you. What do you think the guy's plan was? I guess before I let you go, you think he built this whole thing? You think he was just planning to keep you down there for years and turn you into a sex slave, or what?
He told the cops that he was planning on moving us somewhere overseas after the heat died down. I don't know what he was planning. He was definitely a good actor, crying for the cameras after I was abducted, and even up to the day before he had released me, he was good. He was crying for the cameras and everything, sobbing. I don't know. He told me that he was trying to get me out of a custody dispute between my godmother and biological mother. Then he told the cops other things, and I don't know what was going through his head.
Wow. Well, it's a fascinating story, and her book is called Buried Memories, Katie Beers' story, and it's available in stores right now. Katie, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Beers.